recorded for live and subsequent broadcast available through the Council's website. The Council is a data controller under the General Data Protection Regulations and Data Protection Act 2018. We broadcast and record Council meetings to fulfil our public task obligation to enable members of the public to observe the democratic process. Data collected during the process will be retained in accordance with the Council's published policies available through the Council's website. Members of the Council are reminded that they should follow the Council's established meeting protocols, including around the use of the chat facility, and that comments made in the chat facility are visible to all participants in the meeting, which may include members of the public who have also received invites to the meeting. Okay. Do we have any apologies, substitutions, or declarations of interest?
Convener, we have apologies from Provost Mackenzie and also from Councillor Daisley to be substituted by Councillor Armstrong. Move to a roll call. Can the following councillors please indicate if they're present at the meeting? Councillor Armstrong.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Brooks.
In chamber.
Councillor Cassidy.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Clockedy.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Crowder.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Curley.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Jackson.
Present remotely.
Councillor McCormick.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Nelson.
In chamber.
Councillor Quinn.
Present remotely.
Are there any declarations of interest?
Yeah.
Sorry,
I've got a declaration to make up one of the private items. I suggest I make it during the private.
yeah, okay, that's fine. Okay, Chris.
Thanks, Michael. Just to declare a connection with respect to agenda item number 3. The company I work for is mentioned in dispatches with to some of the building works. So I have not been directly involved in that aspect of the project, and I don't have no information with respect to it. I'm not privy to any information, so I'm happy to content to remain in the room for that agenda.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, Jim.
Yeah, you did it for yourself. I just want to do a blanket, just in case anything I've missed is not on it. So for instance, because I'm looking and I'm sure that we might have something with regard to the trust might be in there somewhere, especially on the shared prosperity, and with the James Watt HIV. I'm always a councillor appointed to Riverside Inverclyde, so anything that includes any of these, just I don't know why questions in. I can see Lindsay looking at me and shaking her head. And
Okay, John. John, your lights on. Oh, okay. Okay, thanks very much, everybody. Okay, before we get into the business, we'll not be here with agenda item number 10. Do you want to just explain what we're going to be doing with this?
Yeah, thanks, Convener. Just to confirm, as you'll see from the communication from the committee clerks, the report on the national strategy for 20 miles per hour has been withdrawn from today's agenda. And the intention is to arrange an all members briefing on this, and thereafter requested to consider a special meeting of the committee, and that's given the time pressures associated with potential timescales for implementation and the conditions linked to any external funding.
Okay, thanks, Edit. You okay with that, John? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to the business. Item number 2 is the 2024-25 Environment Regeneration Revenue Budget. Matt, would you like to take us through it?
Yes, thank you, Convener. I would remind members that given the time of the year when we're just processing the year end, this is not quite the final. It will change slightly, and we'll report that back to committee after summer recess, but we expect it to be close enough to the outturn. You'll see from point 1.3, we're reporting £182,000 overspend. That's a slight improvement from last period. And I would remind members that within that, there are a couple of pressures that, well, we haven't addressed 24-25, we have addressed them in the 25-26 budget. So there'll be £200,000 worth of pressures money coming in to help with that, so you bring us further on target next year. And one of those pressures is agency, which we referred to at 1.4. I think there's one small area that the officers still deal with in there, but the agency's just about cleared now as well. Details of the overspend are in the body report and in the appendices, so I'll not go to them in any detail, but I'm more than happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Okay, Matt, thanks very much. Any questions for Matt? No, don't see anything. Don't see anything in the chat. I agree, Sorry, Dennis.
I've seen that, it's mentioned here that a lot of the overspend is due to vehicles. I was just going to ask a question. Do the council normally own vehicles, or do we have them in some sort of hire arrangement?
Neil, you like that?
Yes, thank you. So you can be, it's a mixture of both. The routine maintenance is just reported there. The overspend is for exceptional items, but it's a mixture of both ownership.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Can we agree?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. Item 3 is Environment Regeneration Capital Programme Progress Report. Edith, you want to take it through?
Yeah, thanks again. Capital Forum puts the usual multiple projects at various stages. I won't go through all of them, but we'll pilot really progressed into the report was started. We have tenders to come for one project, which is the common replica replacement on the works to the Rugler Tower, and those tenders are currently being evaluated. Projects with notable progress include the demolition works at Green Park, where the first phase is on site and progressing well, and the second phase of tenders are due before the term next week. Works also progressing on the former St Mun's school site, and the flood mitigation scheme at the corner of Chemical Road and Glenbury Road was recently completed. There's also an item within the report covering the outstanding action to implement a payment app solution for car parking charges, with a detailed outline in section 3.36 of the report. In terms of the overall expenditure projections against the 24-25 budget, reporting an advancement of 5.74%, and that's still subject to the conclusion of year-end accounting process and accruals. That's the committee approved recommendations, and myself and any other officers are happy to answer any questions on the various projects.
Okay, thanks, Edith. Any questions? Pam?
Thanks, convener. Yes, it's paragraph 3.15, green municipal buildings. I mean, I know this is about the roof and the skylight and so on, but while I'm here, wondered if I could just ask if there's been any assessment of the lower windows. I mean, I walk past the building, as we all do, every day, and I look at these windows and I think, I don't know, I don't know how safe or, well maintained they are. Maybe everybody else is quite happy with them, but I just wonder, since I'm here and there's an item about municipal buildings, I thought, does somebody look at the windows and is there a view about them? Thank you. I know there was an emergency repair to part of it at some point, but thank you.
Yes, we've undertaken a phased programme replacement to the municipal buildings windows probably over the last 5-6 years. Those windows that you refer to are the kind of ones that are in lost place. They're quite a difficult window to get a modern design equivalent for. So we've had some engagement with a number of suppliers. We've engaged with Historic Environment Scotland, and we're quite frankly, I find it difficult to replicate them exactly. So that's why they haven't been addressed before now. But it is something we're going to re-engage with HES on, because we feel maybe take a slightly different approach to the solution there to help us move it forward. And we're always looking to upgrade the energy efficiency of windows. Those ones are particularly inefficient. So it is definitely one of our programme list to resolve.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks, convener. Can I first say what an incredible amount of work there is in this paper. We've given from the externally funded programme to our net zero programme to the works that we're actually doing, the works that have been going on long term, like we know about the Dunwood Road, it's been a long term thing. So an incredible amount of work that Eddie and his team are doing. I think we've got to recognise that. I used to sit in that chair as a convener education when we were doing the schools, and I used to always say about the amount of hard work that Eddie and his team's doing with that. It now seems as if it's within this committee. So I think firstly to congratulate him. There is of course frustrations. Eddie knows I've got a frustration with the Watt Institute, with the lift to make it DDA and compliant, because obviously we want our fantastic Watt Institute to be enjoyed by all the citizens within Inverclyde, not just our mainly able-bodied one. I'm quite happy with what you've got said there, Eddie. It'd be good if you could give us any idea of the timescales of what we're talking about with the Watt Institute. Other than that, I think it's a fantastic thing.
Okay, Jim. Thank you, Edith.
Yeah, thanks, and thanks, Miguel. The Watt Institute work has been a wee bit of a challenging project, as they usually are when it comes to buildings like that. But particularly so because the contractor who was engaged to provide the lift, which bought from a different company, and that lift is no longer made by them. So it means our contractor has had to engage with different supply chain because we've got permissions to install that particular style of lift. It has obviously got to be sympathetic to the building it's going into, and there are a limited number of suppliers who can actually produce a lift like that. They are engaging with them at the moment, and we hope to have that resolved very shortly. Once they have that resolved, we're looking probably a 4-week design and drawing program, and then a 14-week offset manufacturer program. But once that has been agreed, that is the period you're looking at before you get to the site. So it is happening, it will happen. It's just getting that final lift agreed.
No, thanks, Eddie.
Paul?
Yeah, I'd say, yeah, I've just got a couple of comments, a couple of questions to ask you. I wanted at 3.10, Neil, what pass on thanks for also the work that they played for. It's really, really good that work, and the play park's getting really heavily used by the Waterfield community. And I know the community council, Branch Larkin Bayside, want to pass on their thanks to officers for the work done there. At 3.31, I want to welcome the funding that we've got from SPT for the bus stops in A78 and Inverkit. I think that's going to be really welcome. I know it's something that I had been asked for a couple of years alongside the community council, so it's good to be able to see that, because then we'll be able to get a full restoration of bus services to Inverkit, which unfortunately the village has been without particularly a link into Europe that we used to have. At 3.36, I want to welcome the move for app payment app for parking. I think that's going to greatly improve the availability for people to have options to pay. And I think it's also particularly important that we really emphasise the fact that we're not removing the payment machines as well, because obviously there'll be a lot of people who want to pay using an app, but there is still a large section of the population who aren't comfortable doing stuff like that. So actually having the physical machines there is equally important. At 3.24 Eddie Dunroad Road, that's a big concern for me about where we are with that. I know the ecological surveys you went starting in June, the paper says, just an idea about when we anticipate that being finished and having a report back on it.
Okay. So you can be that. Yeah, I think the North Road, we're in the process of agreeing a compound for the contractor within the car park area at the visitor centre, and to allow that work to progress. You're probably looking at least a 4 to 6 week period of what's on site, and then obviously there a period where you need to analyse the results, and that'll come back in various forms of reporting. So I can't give you an exact time frame, but that gives you an idea of there's a period of on-site work and analysis, and then there'll be a report to come back after that, which will inform the development of the detailed design options, which lets us then understand what the cost of the project will be compared to the budget that we thought.
Sure, thanks for that. And just the last one, 3.41, I put on the record of Martha and to you the responsiveness you've had around some of the heating issues that we've had with the Inverkit project. I'm really appreciative of a lot of the measures that you've put in place to try and address that, and I know a number of people have said to me it's been a big improvement from some issues we've had over the last couple of weeks. So really, thanks for your work on that, and thanks for being open to responsive to deal with some issues that people have raised.
Okay, anyone else? Chris?
Thanks, Michael. Just on, I have a couple of questions. On 3.5, page 12, Town Centre Villages, we talk about West of Paul Street, what's been complete. Additional road signs, cycle power installed, minor outstanding snagging will be addressing maintenance paid. Does this mean there's no additional costs related to any of these works that are still outstanding? Because we're conscious of the fact, I want to make sure that we're looking at possibly having to have road orders of the sets and change things to do with the West Paul Street. So I want to just get a handle on the actual implications of these changes going forward, what the actual relative costs are for actually completing the works, and whether or not that'd be possible to bring to committee before we make a decision what we're actually doing with that. Because I just want to get a handle on exactly what are the quantum of the outstanding works and how much that really costs us to get it fully implemented, really.
Yeah, so you can do that. The works we referred to there are small scale. So there was a contingency within the project, and we're still well within that. So there's no cost implication for us in terms of what we're reporting to committee. But obviously we've still got to do the final account factor, but we anticipate that to be within the envelope that we're currently working with. So there's no cost with this. It's just a case of the snagging is obviously the snagging, the account has to rectify that. Any additional signage will be paid from that contingency, and as well, kind of cycle shelves will follow on.
Yeah. Well, I suppose if we have a contingency we haven't really utilised yet, it's an opportunity best case, there's two options here with respect to this. We can continue on. We know one option requires us to revisit the road orders and for the two-lane cycling and maybe make changes to the traffic lights and things like that to actually fully implement that. Another option is maybe to actually just to put it back to a one-lane cycling. I'm just trying to get an idea of is there a cost-benefit analysis done at this point in time to see how best way to progress this. Because I'm conscious of the fact as we go out for road orders, I'm sure there's going to be a chance there could be objections, etc. At this point in time, so I'm just trying to see if there's a path of least resistance really with respect to getting this job finished.
So you can be there hasn't been an analysis done of the manner that you've described there. I think the last position of officers on the cycleway operation was that a recommendation was to progress a TRO to amend it to the two-way cycleway. But we don't believe that there would be a compliant solution that would meet such requirements to change it back to a single way, given that the cobbles will be used in the road. But that can be something we went back another briefing or report.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on, just with respect to Dunrod Road, it's good to see that obviously that they're expecting the site investigation works to go on in June 2025. I'm conscious of the fact that this has been going on probably since about 2019, on and off. And I note that we are expecting this to then enable us to progress the detailed design or revisit the design proposal, etc. But I think it'd be, from my perspective, I'd like to try and get an idea about its sort of like timescales here, because at the moment we don't really have a sort of timescale on the plan. That's something I mentioned in previous committees, to get an idea about what we think the actual likely timescales are for getting this job complete. And just really to help us with our scrutiny function, we can actually see how things are progressing, or things going to plan. At the moment, we don't really have that sort of sketched out programme about what we plan to do here. And I think really if we get this site investigation works, I think we should really be able to programme what we plan to do going forward, because we have the site investigation works, we'll know what the ground conditions are, we should therefore be able to actually programme in the appropriate detailed design and then the sort of tender, etc., and see exactly where we can actually get to, because I'd like to try and get a bit of something actually written down here, because really we want to try and be pushing this forward. I've labelled the point previously. I'm not going into the superlatives I used previous meetings, but I really want to just try and see if we can get this job pushed on.
Yeah, so you can be that. We likewise would like to get the job pushed on, and there's been a number of obviously difficulties along the way, and this has predominantly been undertaken through external consultants. These consultants give us advice that we can't do things at certain times of the year because of ecological constraints, and that has held up where we are at the moment. I appreciate before that there was different options had to be investigated for the route. That's still the case, and this work is obviously going to conclude that piece of work and then allow us to put a time scale on what the detailed design options will be. So yes, I think we're close. We don't put a time frame on this realistically. What I can say is that time frame we can give you, from now to end completion, because it's still going to be subject to us going back and saying, here are the options, are there any more than one option, and here are the costs, and whether that fits within the budget. That'll be the key thing to establish next, before that overall programme.
Okay, Dennis.
Yeah, starts more details about the road. I mean, what are the current options? Are the current options to repair the road or to build another road further up the hillside? And are both of those options being looked at the moment?
So you can be the current option is to build another road further up the hillside. It's the exact route of that road that is subject to the different options being considered, because there's obviously topographical challenges and different obstacles in the way. So that's at the moment, we won't know what the best route is or the most economical route is until this site investigation work is concluded. But the options we looked at are very much, it has to be a new road further up into the hill. Repairing the road is one of the options we previously considered under the option based on when we discounted.
Right. I mean, I have grave concerns about this new road further up. Basically, you could create a situation like we've got in the rest of the thankful, where you cut a new road further up, and then you're going to start getting landslides. You've got, you know, the historic waterway, the cut above that. Then the other thing that concerns me is how steep this road is going to be coming back down to join the original road. Bearing in mind that this road gets a lot of ice and things, you know, in the winter, snow and ice because it's higher up. So I really have a lot of concerns about building a new road, and obviously we'll see what comes back to committee. But you know, I think there's more complicated building a new road in my mind than there would be repairing the old road. And I think repairing the old road could be a cheaper option as well.
But just for briefly coming back in that, I mean that was the reason for the investigations that we brought back some of the previous committees. Kind of identifying where the areas within the hill were less likely to provide an issue going forward, and the current location of it is obviously not working. So the investigations that have done today have identified, you know, where in that hill is least likely to actually present problems in the future, and that's why we're following up with this detailed investigation to confirm that work.
And I think it's fairly obvious that the water that's causing problems in the current road is going to be there further up the hill as well, you know. So I think you're going to be dealing with the same thing. You're going to be dealing with a steeper road, and you're going to be dealing with an area that's not been cut into before and could create landslides in the future. And I think it's very dangerous. That's my opinion. As a layman, obviously, I'm not qualified as far as roads are concerned, but I can see dangers.
Yeah, this is why we've got a number of engineers and geological consultants.
And that's why it's taking so long to get to where we are just now as well. Paul?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Yeah, you know, also this decision was made, you know, quite a while back. It was subject to a very detailed report. I think 3 options presented, and you know, I think very timely picked the right option, which was the option that you know, officers will recommend to us. So an option that basically the whole Imbricate Williams Bay community welcome, including the community council, Councillor Nelson. I think you actually might be a member of the committee back at the time when we did approve it. And I think, you know, one of the important things to remember is we probably would have already been on site doing some of this work, and I mean for the fact that a significant amount of money had to be removed from the project when the Scottish Government pulled the funding that they were contributing towards it.
Okay. That's just maybe Pam and Colin will agree with me. It's nice to see the work that's been done at the corner of Glenberry Road and Kilmacombe Road, the flood alleviation or prevention works. And hopefully between that and what we've done off Mountain Glen will solve the historical problem that we've had in that area with flooding in the past. So, anyone else?
Just cut back in. I think it was unfortunate the Scottish Government's funding, which we had attributed to that project, was cut temporarily. But at the same time, we always have access to other funds, and the council could have done something else.
Would have been disappointed you didn't come back on that.
Yes.
Okay, can we agree a recommendation? Yeah, agreed. Okay, thank you. Okay, item number 4 is Environment Regeneration Committee delivering improvement plan for 23-26. The annual refresh and performance summary 24-25. Neil?
Thank you. So the report was just an easy comparison, setting out the future year, current years, CDIP, including the review of test performance, where items were delivered, where items were set in additional new actions within that. It's set out in the fashion that's usual for committee, so I don't propose to go into any detail and perhaps take questions.
Okay, thanks Neil. Any questions for Neil? John?
Thank you, Convener. I noticed that on page number 47, it's to do with the number of trees that were planted, and it states there that under 2023-24 there was 11,760 trees
Thank you. So you can be now, yes, so there's about just over 10,000 trees planted at Coves with funding to do so. So it's obviously funding dependent to an extent, and that's why the numbers were as high in that particular year.
Okay, that's fine, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
Sorry, Michael.
One online.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, just a quick question for Neil. I think so under 3.11 it mentions that the 3-year business survival rate decreased. So I was just wanting to explore do we understand the reasons from that? Obviously, some of those reasons will not be out with our gift, but if there's anything specifically we're doing to target that. Thanks.
Thank you. So I'm not aware of anything specifically that's resulted in the change of figures. They do tend to fluctuate. We have obviously approximately just slightly over a year ago set up a large grant programme for businesses. So whether that's been of any assistance or one, I wouldn't probably necessarily correlate them, but there has been support activity through the Business Gateway contract, but numbers fluctuate. I don't have any specific evidence as to what's caused the numbers to fluctuate in this instance.
Okay, thanks. I'm just conscious, obviously, those businesses will fold, but is there any data collected from them or commentary collected from so that we can understand those reasons?
Thank you again to you, Convener. So the part of the draft economic growth plan we agreed in March was looking at getting better intelligence on business data, because we do have some, but it's probably not collected and analysed and as best a fashion as we could. So that is an activity we've got at the moment. We have effectively capacity in business development at the moment due to vacancies, but we're expecting a appointment of a team next week and further recruitment over the coming months. So that will be the resource to collect and analyse the information, but we do intend to get back to analysing the information that we do have.
Okay, thanks, that's helpful.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Chris.
Thanks, Michael. Just with respect to a couple of questions. First one relates to the KPIs with respect to potholes. We talk about category 1 potholes and category 2 potholes. Do you have any KPIs with respect to footpath repairs?
No, we don't. It's just part of the general grant programme. KPIs.
Yeah, I'm just, when I was looking at it, it's just something that's come to mind because there's been a few things come in recently with respect to footpath repairs. And I'm just wondering if it's maybe something that we can consider in the future, because obviously looking at the hierarchy of transport, you're really looking at walking, wheeling, cycling, etc. has been important to that. And a lot of the times, if you've got damaged footpaths, etc., it can have a disproportionate effect on other parts of our community, women, children, buggies, people who, and it's maybe trying to catch that as a KPI, because we want to sort of see if we can get a handle on how long it's taking us to repair the footpaths as well, and set targets on that if we think it's appropriate.
It's something I can take back to the officers and gauge a view on.
Yeah. Thank you very much. That'd be very useful. The other thing, just a question on page 36 with respect to the preparation submission of the Environment Regeneration Plan, the proposed UK Scottish Government. I was just wondering, as a committee, would we see sight of that plan, and how would that be planned? Would that be put to consultation before it actually goes to the UK Scottish Government?
Thank you. Yes, so there is work ongoing at the moment, particularly through the UK Government Town Fund and Improvement Fund. So that process is ongoing to analyse existing master plans to centre action plan, which has been approved by this committee previously in assembly data, and that and provide a kind of collective view on that going forward. There's obviously significant funding from for different projects, including the Not Fund project and the Town Fund project. So it is important to get that that collective view, and we're working on doing that.
So would this plan be really in the auspices of the town board as opposed to ourselves?
Well, that is being prepared underneath the Town Fund for that purpose, but it would be obviously subject to wide consultation as is the requirements of that programme.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Don't see anything else online. Okay, item 5 under new business is the UK Shared Prosperity Fund report. Neil?
Yeah. So this report is presenting a proposal on the utilisation of funds for the current financial year for the fund. The fund, the allocation of just over £1.5 million was notified to the council just later on in the last financial year. And so it's the first opportunity we've had to present concrete proposals on the utilisation of that fund. Within the report, also an overview of the previous programme, 2021-2025, with coverage of the project within that and the output from that programme. There's probably worth noting that it's been the recommendation that there's a £267 million underspend for the multiply component of that project. I'm sorry to be reporting that to committee today. It's disappointing that we've had to underspend money on the multiply programme. In the report, we have set out some of the efforts that we're going to engage with the sector at repeated points through the programme to ensure delivery, as well as looking at how we could repurpose the money, which was difficult because of the Aberdeen multiply component particularly. So ultimately, apologies for reporting the underspend in this instance, and the report sets out the future spend. Future spend is covering continuation of employability programmes, business support activities, and allocation of the capital fund within the Shared Prosperity Fund. Both the previous programme and the current proposals are presented in appendices 1 and 2, and I'll have to take questions in more detail.
Okay, thanks, Neil. Okay. Don't see any questions. Sorry, Christian, you go.
Yeah, just to pick up about the multiply, I think I shared the disappointment expressed there about the fact is that effectively we're having to give this money back. Obviously, I think hopefully there's an opportunity for us to, as an organisation, to take a bit of learning about that, because obviously we do need to make sure that this funding, and I appreciate that sometimes these things do land quite out of the blue by UK and Scottish Government when announcements are made. But at the same time, I think we have to look at, I suppose, where's the right place to spend the money. And obviously, we've identified in this report here that there's been capacity issues within Clyde Council with respect to some aspects of the everyday maths, which is effectively not been spent at all. And we have had other third-party organisations, for instance, West College Scotland was involved in the Multiply West College Scotland aspect of it. Now, previously that was reported as having a £30,000 underspend, and now it's more like it's £55,000 underspend. So we do, sorry, £6,000 underspend. So we do have an issue with respect to how we can actually engage, I think, with partners to ensure that we get the money spent in the best possible way, because though there was constraints here about how the money is spent, and yes, governments have a habit of doing that, but it would be really good to utilise this money, even if there's a possibility of having some substitution with existing funding that we're already doing. So I think, I hope there's an opportunity for us to, as an organisation, to look about what we can learn from this issue here, and to take it forward to ensure that we're better placed when these opportunities arise in the future.
Thank you to the community. Yeah, I absolutely agree, and I'll happily give a commitment to that. We've already had conversations about how we can maximise utilisation of grant when we get it, albeit considering the timescales and restrictions in funding. So that's absolutely something to agree. Just a bit of further detail on the capacity and like what some of the resources within the council went to supporting the partners that did spend on multiply tax and deliver. So there was capacity diverted there. So but nonetheless, your point was accepted and we've already started the process of thinking about how we do that.
Okay, thanks. Lynn?
Yeah, thanks. Just a quick question under Appendix 2. So it notes that the investment priority under community in place shows town centre improvements with a total of £695,000. I was just wondering what the split of that was across the three towns. Obviously, there's a mention of that, a reference to that in private paper, so I don't want to go into that, but it was just to understand what is the split of those that amount into the three towns.
Yeah.
Thank you, convener. I would suggest that probably it's better to give further detail on that item when we're in private session, if that's okay.
Okay, that's fine, thanks.
Okay. Okay, I don't see anyone else. Can we agree? Recommendation?
Agreed.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, item 6 is the nature restoration fund proposed project.
Thanks, convener. So fairly short report today. Members will recognise this report on the similar report was brought to the Environment Regeneration Committee in August last year. At that time, funding from the Nature Restoration Fund was pulled, so we noted the priorities and agreed that they would remain priorities subject to funding being received for them. So we now have funding in place, plus some additional funding, so the report sets out effectively the programme was presented to August Environment Regeneration Committee and the projects to utilise to spend on the investment funding. I'm happy to take questions on the detail.
Okay, thanks, Neil. Chris?
Thank you. Just in relation to page 66, the proposals, there's two proposals I just wanted to see if you can get some further information from. The £94,000 for the nature trail improvements and refurbishment, also I think this has been reported in the local press. I'm just trying to get an idea about what actually the plans are here, because it does seem quite a lot of money to be spending. And I take it this is a budget cost as opposed to an actual contractual cost. And is it proposed to actually undertake these works by with the trust, or is it meant it's going to go out to sort of more commercial activity? Because it just seems to me that £94,000 is quite a lot of money. It's great that we're spending it on that. I'm just wondering what is the actual quantum that we're planning to do for these nature trail improvements? So it's possible maybe to give further information either in this committee or offline. That'd be very useful.
Yeah, through the convener, some of the kind of structures that form nature trail are quite old, and they take quite an interesting route through the valley, the line. So we've had some engineering input to look at diverting or rerouting some of that, because putting them back in the exact location there then would be quite engineeringly difficult. So that's why there's a reasonable allocation against that. It does involve potentially changing the route of the trail and putting in new structures to take a more pragmatic route through some of the difficult terrain. It's a budget cost at the moment, so until we've got the develop proposals and procure tenders, then
okay. The other comment I have was in Kelvin Park, the Arboretum study and tree works. I think this follows on from a paper we had previously at the committee about this project. I know there was a number of trees that actually fell at the recent storm in Kelvin Park. I think there's certainly there was it's a lot better than what it was in certain locations. I'm just wondering, has that had any impact on the proposals for Kelvin Park?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so the studies for the trees are well in Kelvin Park in general, but alongside the road, and just to ensure the structural stability of the land there in relation to the trees that are planted. So that's there was some as you say, some trees fell during the storm, and that impacted on the landscape there. So it is part of the proposals to be assessed the condition and health at the location.
Okay.
Paul?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, well, this report is particularly great that we now have that funding secured after it got removed from us last year. So I'm particularly great to see that we're really able to cover the projects that we had to pull. It was disappointing, when yet again another chunk of money was removed from us by the Scottish Government. So I'm particularly pleased as well to see the investment we're in for Cornwallis, the nature trail new improvements. That's actually something that was raised with me by a number of constituents, and actually people who weren't my constituents for around Inverclyde, because it is an area where we need to make some improvements on. And I particularly welcome the woodland survey and path upgrades that Mum's Bay was another issue that a number of my constituents raised in the past. We do need some improvement on that woodland, so we'll be greatly welcomed by the local community there.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Lynn?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the report. It's good to see a number of those improvements happening across Inverclyde. I've just got a quick question under those tenders, and to see if we've explored the possibility of partnering with the trust to see if some of these projects could feature in some of their employability programmes. I'm just conscious of some of these works that are mentioned had maybe previously parts of these have been done by the trust. It's just to see if we're thinking about that and making use of those projects for that purpose. Thanks.
Neil?
Thank you, through Convener. So obviously some of the scale of works will need to be contracted out, but where there's opportunities, I'm happy to go and explore with the team what opportunities there are to relate with sort of third sector providers.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay. Good.
Thanks for asking me. 4.1, one of the projects identified as the community centre expansion of the urban trees for 10k. 3.3 advises that the money comes from the Scottish Government, and obviously my question then is the potential expenditure on more urban trees for community centre. Is that a direction of the Scottish Government? Is that a direction of council officers? Because it certainly is the direction of my constituents.
Neil?
Thank you, through Convener. So the proposal is based on, or the proposals in total are based on priority actions identified in the environment ground stream. So it's informed what priorities they have there. There is a national policy that supports tree planting with the net zero targets. So it's not in conflict with that, but the project is, as with the other ones, need to be scoped for delivery.
Thanks very much. So it is in our gift then not to clog up a community centre with additional urban trees, which would be the push of my inbox. But obviously officers hear my comments, and if you have to rescope, then at some stage I'm happy to make a contribution.
Okay, again, thank you. When you welcome back in?
Sorry, Michael, that's a legacy hand. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. Okay. Can we agree recommendations? Okay. Okay, thanks very much. Okay, item number 7 is the Energy and Climate Change Net Zero Action Plan and Progress Review. Eddie, you finish.
Yeah, thanks, Gabriel. The report covers the annual review of the Net Zero Action Plan, which is included as Appendix 1. A fair amount of detail within that appendix, and some good progress being made across many areas of the plan, and an increasing number of actions now complete. As noted in the report, we refreshed the terms of reference for the Climate Change Working Group and the widening membership to capture commercial activity across the various council services and rights as possible. We'll need to review some areas of the plan, and there's been wonderful progress, whether that be due to funding or capacity constraints, to ensure that these actions remain relevant, but we'll also look to add in new actions between now and the next reporting period. And as the committee note the report, recommendations to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks, Eddie. Any questions for Eddie? Sorry, Pam.
Thanks, Convener. Yeah, thank you. I'm looking at big page 84, and this is all about water bottles. And I see that 2 secondary schools have got these reusable water bottles, Clydeview and Inverclyde. And the next line says this could be rolled out to all secondary schools in the future, but to date this has not been done. And so my question really is, well, what do we have to do to get that done? It doesn't seem equitable or reasonable that that some of our You know, some of our young people have got these bottles and, you know, depending on the sort of school lottery. So, you know, is there a way that this can be moved on, please? Thank you.
This is one I need to take back to my colleagues in education and facilities management to understand why. But there's a lot of information in here that's fed into lots of different services. So I might be able to answer quite a lot of the questions, but maybe not that one, I'm afraid. But I can take that away and come back.
No, thank you. And we have
Okay,
we have the convener here as well. Thank you.
right, okay. Okay, can we agree on recommendations then? Okay, thank you. Okay, item number 8 is the Glasgow Region City Deal Commercial Space Programme. Neil.
Thank you. So this report is presenting an update and proposals for utilisation of funding that's been awarded through the Glasgow City Deal Programme. As part of the residual funds from undeveloped projects that sit within the Clyde, a substantial amount of £64.5 million has been left over for reallocation to different projects, and the City Deal PMO sought expression of interest for alternative uses for that funding approximately a year ago to Council, Council or business led regionally to secure commercial space, business space, recognising the Scottish Government Task Force ask. And that was that was successful and agreed to the City Region Cabinet in February. There was an additional allocation of nearly £10 million to Clyde Council as a result of the special priority status being awarded to Clyde Council. So the programmes agreed the constituent projects for around the region will be essentially developed into the business case, and the report seeking permission to proceed to develop 4 projects at Inchgreen or Lost Place, Kelvin Phase 2, Crescent Street and Nicholson. The proposals are obviously at a very early stage given the recent approval, so the kind of financial modelling details will be worked out and brought to the business case, but reported back to committee through further capital programme updates. We'll have to take questions on the report in any detail within it. Good.
Okay, thanks, Neil. Jim.
Yeah, it's really not a question. It's just to say this is a fantastic paper. This is really good news for Inverclyde. You know, when you think on it, for us to get the special priority and the former corporate director of Regeneration, who's not sitting a million miles away, and the former chief executive as well, and the teams surrounding it, that this is a fantastic piece of work to get this money to Inverclyde. And it's just to congratulate us all. I mean, we as elected members have faith in our officials to go and try and get extra money to the area. And this is when we see the benefit of that. So this is an extra £10 million come to Inverclyde through the auspices of our officers working really hard to get it. So it's really, sometimes we just need to congratulate them and the good work they've done. Because what this will do, this will enable what we all want is jobs in this area. You know, so if we expand Kelburn, which has always been certainly a wish of mine, I know a wish of quite a lot of people around this table, to get more jobs in that area and more jobs in Inverclyde is something we all want. So to get this extra £10 million in to help plant the seeds of that is really fantastic news. So well done everybody concerned in this.
Yeah. Chris?
Yeah, first of all, their connection in this paper with respect to Riverside Inverclyde and the joint venture in the park. Sometimes you read these papers, you think to jump out at you, and you read it again, go, aye, maybe I should. So yes, please, I'll mention with respect to these papers, and also I'll associate myself with the comments that Jim did as well with respect to the good work that's been done to secure this funding. Just on a more sort of like discrete point, I suppose, it talks about proposed commercial incubator space with potential skills innovation centre at Inchgreen or potential business hub at Wallace Place. Obviously, you know, these are 2 elements that will be subject to future ongoing discussions, etc., with either Wallace Place, which we own, and but also Inchgreen, which is owned by Peel Ports. So I presume when we're developing that business case, we'll have to look at, etc., how that can be done and who will have responsibility for the actual incubation hub, etc.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, yes, so you'll see from the fact that it's now involved that we are at an early stage of development of these projects, so there will be scope and feasibility analysis, etc. around that and how the model work for the operation and running of them. As I said before, the details in terms of the financial and commercial cases aren't known yet, because we need to work on that as officers, and that's what we're seeking permission to do, just to provide a bit of clarity on the River Clyde point. This has been fully led by the council at this point in time. It is obviously referenced in the report because there are options potentially around how we were to get our involved in this, and that's to be explored. Will be brought back in further updates.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. I would just like to associate myself as well with Jim's comments. I think it shows the importance of building relationships both with the Scottish and UK government when it comes to this type of funding. So it's well done to everybody involved. Okay, any more questions? Jim, you finished?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Peter.
Okay, can we agree on recommendations?
Yep, agree.
Okay, thank you. Okay, item number 9, the area spend proposal for 25-26.
Thank you again for your so this is a follow-up from previous reports on the annual programme spend for play equipment. This is part of a 5-year programme for government for play equipment spend in London, and this is the last year of the programme. As a Nature Restoration Fund project paper, the proposals are prioritised and based on understanding and continuous maintenance and review of the assets that we've got. So the proposals set out in the paper are for a regional destination play facility at Parkley and upgrades and maintenance investment at Battery Park in Burn Square. So as the proposals are reflective of 2 weeks worth of maintenance and investment and finalising the programme when we use spend. I have to take questions in the detail.
Yeah, that's not.
Just obviously partly in my ward. I've got my mind's eye at Destination Park, Play Park is something akin to what's at Lunderson Bay. That's kind of thing you're thinking of, yeah.
Paul?
Yeah, thanks, Premier. Yeah, no, welcome the investment that we're planning here, especially with Destination Park. You partly, I think that'll be a very good opening. Also, particularly, what welcome the investment in Burn Square Play Park. That's in my ward. It's due, with the whole, so it is the next area of the time the new play park that we've opened up in the lower park again as well, so I'm very welcomed by the local community. I was asked of officers if we have a bit of engagement with the branching Blackfield Bayside Community Council around the plans for what we're looking to put into the play park is for some opportunities with them.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, absolutely happy to do that. The engagement process in Smithson Park was, was good, and I'm absolutely happy that we do that again for future investment.
Thanks.
Okay, can we agree recommendation?
Great.
Okay, item 12 is the management rules for cemeteries and crematorium in Inverclyde. Sorry? 11. Oh, sorry, 11, sorry. Kinbridge Europe, the outcome of non-statutory consultation for proposed one-way system. Edith, you tell us.
Yep, thanks, Convener. The report provides summary responses to the non-statutory consultation of the board to make Kinbridge Europe one way. There was a really positive engagement by the community with 581 responses, 293 of those with comments. These are summarised in the body of the report and within the appendix. And the report also proposes the implementation of a scheme under an experimental traffic regulation order with the associated timescales and procedures for that outlined in section 4.2. And then permanent orders to also put a proper report to this committee. And it should also be noted that the current scheme of delegation does not cover the use of ETROs at the moment, and this is reflected in the recommendations section of the report. That's it. I know the report, with the recommendation, happy to answer any question.
Okay, thanks, Edith. Any questions for Jim?
Yeah, just to say, it's good to see this paper here. I feel as if this is one of the ones that I keep on talking about, that I feel as if we've talked about at this committee over many years, and there's been various attempts to find a solution to the problems regarding Curran Drive and problems that would satisfy both road users, but also more importantly, the residents of the area. So I just to commend Eddie. I realise it's not going to be straightforward enough, and I would expect, in all honesty, we're not going to make everybody happy in Current Drive. There's always going to be that tension between the residents and road users and frustrations built up there. But it looks as if at least it's a move forward. So just to commend it, yeah, I do think it's worthwhile and worthy of our support.
Okay, thanks, Jim. One.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, probably first of all to mention that I live in Divot Road. I know it's just been mentioned so many times, but that's probably one of the concerns is Divot Road's going to be busier. So it was probably just to mention that will probably have an impact on me personally. But obviously my comments are avoiding that. I'm absolutely supportive of the recommendations. So probably I just want to mention, I think Jim's already mentioned there about how long it's taken to get a solution there. So I really just want to pay tribute to Bill Oliver, who was the author of the petition. So Bill has obviously tried to reach a solution to Current Drive for 13 years. He came to every community council every month and chipped away at that. So it's just to pay tribute to him and also thank officers, because it was pretty much community led, where he saw the problem and he came up with a solution and helped push it through with his neighbours. So he's obviously delighted that we're kind of finally getting there for his sake. Obviously most people had been supportive apart from some tweaks, so I'm fairly comfortable that this is going as a temporary basis, just to see if they actually happen in the kind of real world. People obviously have got concerns that the problems will be passed down to different streets, but it'll give us a chance to see if that actually happens. So I've just got a sort of probably a couple of questions. Obviously it said it will be reviewed at 3 and 6 months. So if there is a major concern in terms of how the traffic's flowing or congestion somewhere else, is there an opportunity to kind of review that, tweak that at the 3 and 6 month period, or do we have to wait to the final 18 months? Especially, I think it's Current Gardens that's coming up with a particular issue, just because if they're coming to their housing estate from the west, then there'll be a bit of a detour. And also, I don't know if you want one at a time, or would you like me to give you them all at the one time?
One at a time would be good. That's right. So,
yeah, that's okay. That's fine.
Yeah, my understanding of the process, and the review process for us as well, we're not going an ETL route, is that 3 and 6 months review gives you an opportunity to make adjustments and then see how that works. But I will double check that with officers. If it's not correct, I'll let you know. But that, as I say, it's a new process for us as well.
Yeah, great. And I'd probably just to mention that, like to thank you for trying something new, to see it works, because I think that with these things there isn't a perfect solution, so it's just trying to those things. It's not like a one and done. So probably congratulate on that, for being brave and going for that option. A second point is really about speeding. So that always comes up when we make something one way, that it could increase the speed along that area. Is there any speeding measures planned or thought about, or would that come as part of the kind of tweaks?
So you can that can't be considered as part of this, because it requires a formal consultation. So traffic calming and speed reduction requires a formal consultation. So that would come after this. Right. It's always anticipated that would be part of the scheme, but it can't be part of the initial ETR goal. It would have to be part of the permanent scheme.
Okay, so that's just something to monitor then. If that does happen, that'll be a separate process. No, thanks. Yeah. That's useful. So next point is on the £150,000 allocated for temporary construction works. It just to me sounded quite a lot of money because I thought my understanding was a one-way system was the kind of cheaper option. So 150,000 for temporary construction works. I'm just trying to understand. I mean, you don't need to give me them now, even separately. Kind of give me a breakdown of that £150,000.
Yeah, so you can I don't have a breakdown of that, but that's something I can follow up on and provide you some information on. But you're essentially putting in place the bones of the scheme, except the traffic calming, so there will be signs, lines, and there could be amendments to the actual carriageway, etc. as well. So I can take that back to the officers and come back to you with some more information.
No, that's great. I'm just conscious you're actually answering all the technical questions, Eddie. I'm sorry. So that would be useful. Just my last point. So I was actually speaking to Bill, who's the owner of the petition, on Monday night at the community council meeting, and he had mentioned about coming along. So this might be a procedural. I'm just kind of throwing it out here. I think someone probably legal from. Probably Lindsay's good that she's here today. Probably be a legal question, but and a standing orders question. But Bill has specifically mentioned about coming along to this committee, and he asked, or specifically him as a kind of member of the community council, would he be able to come and speak at the committee just to kind of feed and provide that information? So I said, look, you can come along to committee, but you can't speak. But when I researched that for other local authorities, deputations to specific committees are allowed, where a community group can come along and help with the process or for our decision making, especially because I'm conscious that I've got the detail on how it impacts the community from a ward councillor, but others on the committee might not, and they might, find it useful for a kind of representation to be made from a community group.
Lindsay, you want to come in that? Peter?
So my initial reaction would be no, just because the way our committee structure works, so we don't provide for public participation in these sorts of meetings. That's why we have to have, for our traffic regulation audit hearings, we have to have special meetings and special procedures for them. So my knee-jerk would be no, not something we could provide for a moment. We could look at mechanisms to bring the views of an individual or the community in a body report, but that's something obviously we need to look at.
Yeah, I'm happy to have that, Peter. If you could come back to me, maybe we'll have that conversation offline then, just to see if there are mechanisms to can explore that, because it was obviously a point coming up on this specific item, but it's probably a general point, so I probably welcome a conversation around that, if that's okay. Offline, yeah.
Okay, thanks. Dennis?
Thank you.
Yeah. I obviously don't know this area as well as Councillor Quinn, and I find it strange that there's not been some kind of maps included or map included showing the direction of flow of the traffic and different things. So I don't fully understand this. I feel that there's a lot missing from this report, that I don't have that understanding, and I'm sure I'm not the only councillor in that position.
So you can be, I think that level of information was involved and included in the kind of consultation exercise itself. It may have also been in previous reports that have been brought to the committee. I guess we thought that the familiarity of the item was sufficient for the committee that this was agreed on a process to put in place a temporary scheme. So we could have included a plan for clarity. I accept that.
Right. Today we're making a decision, so I feel we really need to know exactly what we're making a decision on to be able to visualise that. It could have been dealt with a briefing maybe prior to this committee meeting, or some other means, but just even having a plan in here would have given me personally an understanding, and I'm sure that would be true for other councillors as well.
I take that point on board, but we've got a plan, we've got a description of exactly where the roads are.
I can't visualise that, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Good. Pam, you want to?
Yeah, thanks, convener. By contrast, I have to say, Councillor Nelson, I feel quite familiar with this area and where the road's going. And I don't have a question. It's just a comment. As a rare participant in this committee, I really welcomed this report. I found it really interesting. I thought, people have been clearly very engaged with it. I think the responses have been thoughtful, and I just think it's been an excellent piece of work. Thank you.
I have to say, I don't live anywhere near Kim Drive, but it's a road I'm very familiar with, just through living in the area for the best part of my life, so I don't know, can I agree?
Thanks very much, Convener. Since I mentioned you putting the temporary one, and obviously we're going to move it, so I'm not too sure what the process is for agreeing it. We agree it all today, but obviously the tweaks. And if the case is that we have the ability to change between the temporary and the permanent, would it be an advantage to the committee, the ones temporary, when the system's in place, to then for a site visit, do we actually physically see what is working? Councillors Nelson's taking this to see the area, but we can have that live, obviously on the pavement, we can have a live update of what the traffic flow is if the committee could then attend a site visit when the temporary is in place.
To the convener, there's nothing stopping that happening. The intention is to bring back a report after the 3 and 6 month monitoring to give the committee a detail of how it has gone, how it's worked. So we would be progressing our permanent order until we have reported back on how the temporary one has gone. But there's nothing stopping a visit happening.
Can you perform the move then, that we have a site visit when the temporary system is in place?
I personally don't think we need that, I have to say. I mean, we've been discussing this for 10 years. I think most of us are very well aware of the issues in Kim Drive. We've been discussing it, as I say, for the last 10-year period. So I think we've got a problem. I think this is a way of solving the problem. And I don't see the need for a site visit to an area which we all know very well. So I would just go with the recommendations in the report.
Content with that?
I don't know if you want to move something.
Sorry, I did move it as a site visit once the temporary is in place.
Okay, so Councillor Brooks, your motion is to agree the recommendations per the report, subject to the addition of a site visit conducted in response to the in response to temporary orders in place. Correct. And convener, your amendment is the just officer's recommendation.
Just recommendation.
Could I just clarify, is this just before we come back to committee on the site visit, just before we come back to committee for it to be permanently established? Is that when we're talking about the site visit? When are we talking about?
Yeah, so once you've got the temporary order in place, you get to see how it's happening on the ground. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Okay, so if I can ask the members to indicate whether they're for.
Convener, could I just come in with one quick question, if that's permissible? When the site visit had been proposed, would that be in the form of a walkthrough from one extremity to the other? It's as simple as that.
Ask Graham.
Yeah.
I think obviously, especially the word councillor, if there is challenges to help us understand what has happened to the traffic flow, to the pinch points, so would walk the appropriate areas. Whether we're going to walk the whole area, I would suggest no. I think we're walking stick with me, John.
Okay.
And again, just for
I'll
clarity,
to the chair.
through yourself, Chair, is there a specific time that you want to do this site visit? Is it first thing in the morning? Is it in the afternoon? Are we going to have maybe 3 or 4 site visits to judge when is actually best? Maybe one at the weekend, one on a Sunday when it's quiet, one during school morning, one maybe in the afternoon? Or is there any particular time you've got in mind for the site visit?
I believe one site visit is suffice.
You're proposing more than one, Jim?
No, I'm not. I just.
Right, okay. Just go ahead with it.
Okay, so members, if I can ask you to indicate whether you're for Councillor Brooks' motion that in addition to the recommendation for the site visit, or the convener's amendment that is simply go with the recommendations of officer. Councillor Armstrong.
Amendment.
Councillor Brennan. Councillor Brooks' motion. Councillor Cassidy.
Amendment.
Councillor Doherty.
Amendment.
Councillor Crowther.
Amendment.
Councillor Curley.
Amendment.
Councillor Daisley.
No, it's not.
No, that's me. Well, it's not me.
That's Bob.
Keep voting, you can vote.
Councillor Jackson. Lost Councillor Jackson. Councillor Jackson, I think you're still on mute.
Yes, it is. Good.
No.
No.
Okay. And
I don't know this one.
Councillor McCormick.
Amendment.
Yeah. Councillor Nelson.
Motion.
And Councillor Quick.
Amendment.
So I have 6 votes for the amendment and 2 votes for motions to the amendment.
Okay. I voted.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay. Okay, item number 12 is the management rules for cemeteries and crematoriums in Inverclyde. Who's going to do that? Is it yourself? Emma.
For yourself, can we just get clarification on that vote there?
Just,
If that's okay.
6-2.
High school math education, but it's like 7-2.
7-2. No, that's no.
Okay. Emma, do you want to take us through the crematorium and cemeteries?
Thank you, convener. Yes, this report relates to the management rules for cemeteries and crematoriums in Inverclyde from 2025 onwards. This committee approved the draft management rules for cemeteries and crematoriums in Inverclyde at its meeting on the 16th of January this year, and also at that meeting authorised officers to conduct the necessary statutory consultation. The purpose of this report is to update the committee as to the outcome of that statutory consultation, which took place from the 3rd of February until the 3rd of March. No objections were received during the consultation period, however one response was received from Police Scotland. As a result of the representation received from Police Scotland, one minor amendment was made to the rules as shown annexed to this report. It's therefore recommended that the committee approve the management rules and remit this to the next meeting of the Inverclyde Council, recommending that the Council formally approves and authorises officers to make the rules. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thanks Emma. Can we agree the recommendations or any questions? No. Agreed. Okay, thanks Emma. Okay, thanks very much. Okay, item 13 is the contract awards from the 1st of October 24 to 31st of March 25. Eddie, get us.
Yeah, thanks. It's covers the report covers a routine 6-monthly contract for what's going. It's for the period of the 20th of October to March. Details are completed at Mrs. 1 and 2. I would answer any questions.
Thanks, Edit. Any questions for Eddie, Chris?
Just on page 253, I just noticed there's a contract from Anasai Farah and for almost £1 million for master planning phase 2 levelling up fund. I just wondered if you could get a bit of clarity of exactly what that master plan would involve.
Thank you, through your convener. I can provide further details on the work that Anasai Farah are doing in the private session alongside that report.
Okay, fine.
Okay, John.
Thank you, convener. It's actually just a comment on page 252, and it's to do with the Drome Street, Patrick Street traffic signal upgrade. When I looked at it there, I could see that it was Hill House Quarry Group Limited, and I thought that was a misprint. But I have actually been in just to check the Public Contracts Scotland, and it does confirm that the input is indeed correct.
Okay, nice to that, John. I'm glad we're not paying somebody, doesn't it? Just
He's just advising just showing how thorough we are when we look at these papers.
One.
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple of points. So under the award list, it mentions Democracy Counts Limited, and the definition is just system. So I just wonder if the rest of them I could read through and pretty much guess what it does, but the one just says system. So it was just to get a wee bit more commentary on that. And just another kind of general question. So I can see the limits that it's only services and supplies over 50,000 that appear and works over 250,000, which is fine. But if a contractor gets a number of, for instance, if they're producing supplies just under the 50, but they've got a number of those, do they appear in this report or not? Or does someone else manage that separately?
I don't know the detail on that system on it. Is it something to do with the elections?
Yes, it's the election counting system.
Right, okay.
And on the second point, obviously the kind of the reporting here is for contracts over a certain value. If contracts are individual contracts are under that value, they're not captured on this. There's no requirement to report those.
So there's no requirement to report them if they get multiple that takes them over that threshold then?
If it's individual awards from a framework or separately tendered, no.
Okay. Okay. That's fine. Thank you.
Okay, can we agree the recommendations?
Agreed.
Okay. Okay, item 14, the proposed site regulation order number 510 for the same persons parking places on street. Can we agree? Yeah.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay. Oh no, sorry, that's right. We need to go to the report of the or of the committee.
Yeah, just a decision of whether to have a special meeting to hear it or an independent report.
Okay, I would suggest it with a special meeting.
Special meeting.
Maybe before the next ENR committee. That would suit.
Yeah.
Yep.
Maybe an hour before.
Yeah. Okay.
We agree on that, yeah?
Agreed.
Okay. Thanks for that. Okay, thanks. And item 15 is the property asset management public side of the report. Edith?
Yeah, thanks, Gavina. Both the items, first one relates to the former Main Street Children's Home, which has been a subject of previous reports as outlined in 3.1. Investigations into possible use by the Office of Social Care Department have now been concluded, and we are now seeking authority to remarket for disposal. Then drive deal with the consultation looking for the potential sale of small area of the land involved in the unit. It's classified as concrete. No representation was received by the for or against another consideration later in the agenda and the private report. Further on last slide, it's purely for noting. There's another open space consultation currently ongoing in relation to potential sale of an area of land to the rear of Block Road in Court, and this will be subject to a report to the next.
Okay.
To get the questions.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. I noticed that the Block Road aspect of it isn't, I think, in the private paper. So I'll ask the question here. I note that the reason for this sale was to stop any future development. Would it appropriate me just to ask the question, according to that being the rationale for the sale, would you be, if you were going to sell the land, would you be putting in appropriate conditions or burdens on to ensure that would remain the case?
So you can get that is possible, and we're also subject to a future report to the committee for consideration. Yeah.
Okay, can we agree?
Okay.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Okay, now the rest of it needs to be held on